Hey, welcome to another episode of the Critical Introvert Podcast. I'm your host, Senor Filth. I'm joined by Intuitive Inks. If you want to say hi.
Hello, I am Intuitive Inks and I'm an artist.
Yeah, a couple weeks off from the show, and we're back. Some interesting things have happened since then. Pride just passed, thank God. Uh, so I think we're just gonna get into it. This whole hullabaloo, the movie, The Sound of Freedom, and just this isn't necessarily a review of the film because I haven't seen it. You haven't seen it either, right?
Nope. But I know a decent amount about it and
Yeah,
Tim Ballard's story.
yeah. I've been mostly interested on learning about him and watching interviews with him than the movie. But just seeing this whole reaction to it, I almost kind of need to see it. Uh, Mostly because I'm kind of on a fuck the mainstream kind of mentality right now. So anything that's challenging that, I have to kind of support it. Um,
hmm
so yeah, so let's just kind of get into it. So yeah, this whole movie's been just plagued with a weird amount of controversy for some reason, and I think let's just sort of go into just why is this controversy there. Um, I guess first there's like at the was it Rolling Stone did a couple hit pieces on on the movie. Uh, there's this,
Let me pull that up.
and there's an interesting, there's an interesting thing what happened to that, the writer of that article, that review. I share that Gateway Pundit.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, okay, all right, yeah. This is the review they gave it. We don't really need thing, but just an odd way to smear a movie. um,
The Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms.
the big, standout thing is the QAnon tinged. Any How much do you know about QAnon, honestly?
It's been a hot minute since
Because
I
like
like
I went through, when I found out about when I heard about the alt right, I followed the alt right for a bit just to kind of see what the hell they believed in. Same thing with Black Lives Matter. Like I actually followed a couple on Black Lives Matter. QAnon, I haven't really been able to track down anything that was um legit. Like we are QAnon. This is what we are, kind of thing. Um,
yeah, it's less of a oh, I hate to say this. This is gonna sound like when people were like, Antifa is a concept and an
right,
ideology,
right.
not a group. It's actually not a group that I know of. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like there are people that subscribe to it, but it was way back and it came about like maybe 3 years ago.
Because I
That's when
remember,
I first heard about it.
yeah, the first when I first started seeing it, it was just sort of like a hashtag at the end of certain posts, and that was it. And I had no idea what it was.
So it's a I bel I believe it's a conspiracy theory
Mm-hmm.
that is based around I know it was related to the theory that the elite were trafficking children and doing blood rituals with children, which there's starting to be proof now, a few years later. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Elijah Schaffer from Slightly Offensive covered it and kind of hinted at it, but then he said eventually that he he's like, no, there's no proof, guys. I'm sorry to say, it's just a theory, but it's kind of a joke on his
Yeah.
show. But there's I wouldn't I don't know about like the fact that Hollywood is trafficking children per se, like as in like oh, they're definitely exploiting children. We know that from like Disney and um
There definitely is something about, Hollywood in the sense where like there can't be a business that, benefits pretty faced people and there not be any kind of sexual molestation thing going on at all. That's just that's just gonna happen. I assume with modeling also that's got to be a thing.
oh yeah, modeling is like very much a gateway into like
I think
a gateway
escorting
to
too. I think a lot of escorts. I think they get groomed through modeling agencies. At least I've heard. Um,
um yeah, I mean escorts aren't too far. They're like pretty much around like prostitution and stuff.
yeah.
It's just it's all it's to me it's all in the same vein as like that OnlyFans cam girls,
Hmm.
people running accounts, kind of like Andrew Tate did. There's
Hmm.
a lot. Um, but yeah, modeling is easily a gateway where they're like, okay, how about you do a swimsuit thing? Okay, how
Yeah.
about we do an artistic cover where you're nude but you're covered up kind of, and then it just kind of
Yeah. There
yeah.
was there was damn, what's that famous model woman? Uh, I've been seeing people like post things recently about her again. Is it Brooke Shields? That when she was a kid, there was some creepy. I think she in Playboy as a child. There's some. I have to see
Uh,
it again. I think it's Brooke Shields.
Not that I know of.
Hmm.
Like I have not heard, but I do know uh Dylan Sprouse, if you ever grew up watching The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody back in the early 2000s. They were two twin boys and they were on Disney.
Oh,
Uh they,
those are the kids from Big Brother, or no, Adam
may
Sandler movie, Big Daddy,
maybe
I
I think
think.
they got their start when they were really young as two twin boys. And I
Hmm.
know that they were in could be they were in a movie, you might be right. Um but he's talked about he's like we turned out okay, but that's because our mom was
Hmm.
making sure, and it's like they said that it's harder for girls to not to like that's why all these girls like Britney Spears and um
Lindsay
who else?
Lohan also, I
Lindsay
think, went
Lohan,
nuts.
Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
Um, all these girls are acting out because they've been sexually abused by producers and exploited as kids. And I mean, there it's not really a theory anymore that Disney has a like a pop star machine,
Hmm.
like where they have like kids and they'll have a show on Disney Channel and then they'll throw in a song into like one of the Disney Channel
Hmm.
things, and if the kid's popular and it takes off, then they become a pop star. And like Disney's big into the industries, like they have
Yeah,
their
that.
hands in everything.
Yeah, what's Justin Timberlake was a Disney. I think it was Mickey Mouse Club. I
Could
think
have been.
Britney Spears also is, I think, a Mickey Mouse Club chick.
Hmm.
I even remember I think right when or a little before Britney Spears kind of exploded. I think she did like a concert performance for Disney Channel, and she was kind of wearing like a see-throughy type shirt, which was kind of weird. Um, but I mean, young me was a fan, but but now when I think back, I'm like, that's like, a little creepy because
I'm too young to remember. I remember when Miley Cyrus went off the deep end with Wrecking Ball being kind of like the main thing that
yeah.
that, like, shocked people because she was Hannah Montana.
Yeah, her flip was really kind of. It seemed really fake and forced to me. Like she was Disney Channel. She had what's that show? What was her show called?
Hannah
Hannah
Montana.
Montana. And then all of a sudden she's like a super whore now, and it felt uh, very like factory made kind of shit. But and god awful music. Anyways, um,
Zendaya's, like, kind of the newest one. I don't I love Zendaya as an actress. She seems like a sweetheart, but both her and her boyfriend Tom Holland are being there's a theory,
mhm,
another theory that that my boyfriend told me about that was like this theory about like this humiliation ritual
mhm,
done by Hollywood that if someone speaks out about the industry, they're forced to do possibly forced to do humiliating roles. Like if you've seen the recent like
mhm.
Zendaya having an explicit
Isn't she like
threesome in
some
her
weird?
movie.
I think she came out with like a really racy. She's like in some weird movie now, something,
Yeah,
right?
that's the one. And there's an explicit scene with two guys, and Tom Holland kind of definitely around the same time was like, I really don't like Hollywood anymore. I want to live a normal life. And now he's like, he looks so unhappy. Like, there's like a scene where he's gay in this like
Oh, he's in there
upcoming
too.
movie. No, it's in a different movie.
Okay.
If you've ever seen it, it's like it's just horrible. Where he's like, eh.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like talking. It's like I don't want to talk too much about like too explicitly, but they're like they're close to my age and they're like a sweet couple and they just
Mhm.
want to be normal and now they're doing these racy, humiliating movies. So it's a theory. It's a theory.
And
It's not.
that's been around for a very long time. Do you know who Corey Feldman is?
Oh
He's
yeah,
an '80s actor, but yeah, he was. I want to say there
he's
was
in a
like,
lot of stuff and he was groomed and he's come out against Charlie Sheen.
oh yeah, but like the thing about him, like he was kind of a sort of cast out a long time ago. Because I remember he was. I want to say he was like in a Barbara Walters interview or something like that, like mid 2000s, and his thing was like I'm quoting him kind of verbatim, but he said something about like the number one problem in Hollywood is has and always will be pedophilia, and he talked about like how he was groomed. His friend
Corey
uh,
Hart,
Corey
Corey
Haim,
Haim.
I think he suspicion that he was molested, and it drove him to kind of
Well, suicide. Corey
yeah,
Feldman did say it was Charlie Sheen.
it
That's what
was
he
that did it.
alleges.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's so bizarre too because that like so I've even heard stuff about like Steven Spielberg and stuff like that and Tom Hanks and
Stuff goes all the way back to the 1930s with Shirley Temple and her mom.
yeah, I've only heard vague stuff about that, but
She I could get into that if you want me to
I mean
real
if you
quick,
want
but
to.
it was more like when she was a little girl and they were I don't remember if it was MGM or Paramount. So take it with a grain of salt what I say, but they were trying to shift over to a different film company.
Hmm.
Might have been MGM. And the producers, like the main heads of the company, wanted to interview them. And Shirley Temple's like huge, huge child star, like the original child star.
Yeah.
And they separated her and her mom to interview them. And they were being interviewed at the same time. And Shirley Temple was just sitting there and the the guy that she was in the room with, this like big guy,
Mm-hmm.
like at the top of the company, he started to take his pants off and undress, and she just started to laugh at him because she didn't know what else to do. She
Yeah.
like because of how ridiculous it was as a little kid, and he got angry at her and threw her out,
Was this
sent her out of the room.
is this something you like she herself spoke about
Hmm.
or
Yeah, I was in an interview, and she ran out. She was kicked out of the room, and her mom came out of the other room at the same time. She's like, her mom was like, "You won't believe what
mm-hmm.
happened to me." The same thing was about to happen with the mom,
Really?
and it
It-
was just so blatant. And it's like it, nothing's new under the sun.
yeah,
That's all I can say.
do you know who who Red Letter Media is? Movie YouTube
Mm-mm.
show. Oh, anyways, they do this show where they kind of review older movies, and they're talking about a movie called Return of the Living Dead, and they're talking about how one of the auditions that one of the women the what she did was that she had to go to I think the producer's house like in the dead of night in like a dark room with like I think like dildos and things like that all over the all over the place, and there was porn playing, and the producer guy I think just wanted her to like say her lines and keep a straight face, but and I'm pretty sure there was creepy shit that wasn't really revealed. He didn't want to get into, but yeah, that's an '80s movie, so it's super super. Um. Anyways, back to the Sound of Freedom. Uh, let's kind of where do you think this kind of uh this media reaction is coming from? You think there's some kind of protection going on, or
Oh yeah,
yeah?
I don't know how else to put it. Like, why else would this be happening? So, like, the media has always been in bed with big corporations, politicians, the elites. Like the media has always like run cover. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
seen it even more boldly the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Like them redirecting. It's so blatant when there's like news of aliens.
Yeah.
They're distracted from something. Like they they I mean they just did Trump's indictment. Like they released that news as soon as one news station had brought up the charges or the indictments, like what they were wanting to indict Biden over.
Yeah.
On the same day,
Yeah.
within the same amount of like within the same time frame to run cover or they're always trying to be like, oh, look over here so you don't see what's over here.
It is
um
interesting to see it like not work as much nowadays. I mean, it still does. I mean, there's still a lot of people that
oh
are
it no it
easily
works.
eat that shit up, but I mean, I no, no, no. Like, there's people like us that, like, we're growing in a even if this is in a small sense, like there is some momentum there. Um, but I mean, I don't know how you like. I generally have no idea why anyone can like follows any kind of mainstream news at all. Like I told you earlier about that far left artist that blocked me.
Hmm.
Um, and the thing about him that's so telling is he's super far left, like a Marxist. He's actually a professor in he's an art school professor in Texas of all places.
Figures.
But the thing about it that's interesting is that like after he posts some propaganda piece, he'll like post a quote from whatever article he got it from, and it's always mainstream articles. It's not like, the Portland Conrad or some shit like that. It's like fucking, you know, ABC News or so. Like I generally can't understand why anyone would go back to anything mainstream news. There's so many stories that were just such bullshit. Why would you go back to it? From Kyle Rittenhouse, um, to the laptop itself.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Um, there are people who still watch, but it's mainly the internet. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the internet. That's how news gets around. It's Twitter. It's people in left-wing circles with confirmation bias, even right-wing circles, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more it's worse on the left. Um,
Yeah.
they send around articles and like whatever's in the article is 100% truth. When what they're reporting on is they leave out like the most important information, or if they can't get around it, they take the most important information
Mm-hmm.
and like put it at the very end at the bottom paragraph.
Yeah.
I have actually seen this happen.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
even recently I've had people on the left sharing articles with me and they're
mm-hmm.
like, "Look, like this is what it says," and they'll just copy paste the quote like from the article which is quoting from the actual source of the thing.
Uh,
Like just if you're just like go to the people just don't go to the original source anymore to think for themselves.
mm-hmm.
And it's all this like fear mongering and it's just driven by fear or outrage, just guided by emotions.
Yeah. People really love headlines, like actual headlines, like not actual articles or details. Just the headline is my truth. It doesn't matter what the article says. It's just the headline. Fuck this person. This headline is telling me to hate. It's so it
It
is like the NPC kind of. It's an NPC reality.
because the headline's the most important thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of funny, like if you watch, if have you seen, you've definitely seen Spider-Man, right? The one from 2001,
The Toby
2002.
Toby
Tobey
Maguire one. Yeah,
Maguire, yeah.
yeah.
And they're talking about headlines, and he's like, Spider-Man's a masked menace or something like that,
Yeah.
instead of like just saying Spider-Man saved someone,
Mm.
or it's just all about like that's kind of how the media like we just think, oh, it's kind of cartoonish, it's ridiculous, but that's what happens.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like that's sort of how the media needs to be, because I mean, at the end of the day, it is a business. So when it comes to the business of media, you need to grab people's attention, and you know, like
So
boring podcasts and stuff describing things in detail. That's that's a very niche market. The average person they just don't have the time or the interest. They got cat videos on TikTok to look at instead of like I at work the other day I listened to the Daily Wire put out one of the episodes of that Jordan Peterson Exodus Bible uh special. Have you heard anything about that?
no, unfortunately, I haven't been keeping up with Daily Wire
Mm.
much. After the whole Steven Crowder thing,
Yeah, that is kind of lame.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely sided with Crowder on it. But like,
But uh,
I'll like sometimes watch Michael Knowles,
yeah.
or
Uh,
Brett Cooper.
I've only like sort of like I haven't really heard much of Jordan Peterson at all for like 6 months, but I just saw on my feed that they recently I think it was like a paid program, but I think they just released the for like one of the episodes for free. And it was
That's
like a two
weird.
and a half hours like round table talk with like Dennis Prager and other John Piaget. I'm not sure
That's
John,
weird.
but they released it 2.5 hours. And I enjoyed it, but that's not something that the average person. is going to and want to sit through and listen to. Just
And what's interesting is it's like they didn't even have any. Did they have any Christian
oh yeah, they
people in there? Because Jordan Peterson's not a Christian, neither is Dennis Prager, but Dennis Prager is Jewish, which is kind. It's like
yeah.
we have the same
Um,
scripture pretty much.
I think they did. I like Jonathan Piaget, Dennis Prager, and Jordan Peterson were the only guys I know of. Yeah, there
Okay.
was a couple other guys. That I think one was like a professor in religious philosophy, and I think there
Okay.
was maybe someone that was like a priest or something like that. But just talking about Exodus and like the meanings behind you know, some of the lines. I find that stuff super interesting,
Hmm.
but the average person thinks that's the most like boring thing in the world. Like that person is much more average, and they're a headline person. They're someone that eats up the headline.
Yeah. So back to
So,
the article we were
okay,
first
let
looking
me
at.
open it up again.
Um, not to like
Yeah, go ahead.
change things, but what's crazy about this to me is that they're acting like sex trafficking and child trafficking isn't real, that
Hmm.
it's just a conspiracy theory when it's extremely real. Like
Yeah, any kind
I
of trafficking is just real, and I I was thinking about this the other like a little earlier. Do you think that some of this like reaction is that there's a lot of people that just um it's hard for people to accept that like genuine evil exists in the world.
yeah, well, I feel like it's not the average person freaking out about this movie. It's the
Hmm.
media. And so I feel like they are running cover.
Hmm.
Some people just refuse to like I feel like it's not necessarily that they don't believe evil exists, because obviously they're militant and they don't
Hmm.
like anyone who's driven by emotions, whether left or right, they know that
Hmm.
there's evil in the world. Um,
But I'm saying like
any well,
uh like there's a difference between like scripted evil like bad guy in a movie evil, but like genuine like the business of like trafficking children for sex purposes, that is anyone involved with that, I would say that they're genuinely evil. And
yeah,
uh
any sex trafficking, any rape,
oh yeah, definitely. and
all bad.
and I think that might be some of the reason, not all of it, but like partly why this is like getting such a action out of people, because I think people, it's kind of like you're what, Christian, or would you say that you
Oh yeah, I'm like super strong Christian.
now were you did you grow up Christian, or is something you kind of came to you later in?
No, I grew up Christian, and I went to a Christian school, so I
Hmm.
have like a lot of I've like done a lot of studies on like theology and looking into different worldviews and stuff.
Hmm.
And I came to Christ when I was 8. Like I that's kind of when I truly believed
Hmm.
and stuff, and my life's just
Yeah.
I know it's not like ooh a huge revelation, but there are like ways I've seen God work in my life and change things.
Yeah, I don't know,
Um,
it's like whenever, like, again, I'm in LA, and whenever religion is brought up to people here in LA, there's this immediate sense to kind of shrug it off as that it's stupid, or it's
it's
backwards
primitive.
thinking. Yeah, and I'm admittedly I'm pretty agnostic, but Uh, I think there is something about like maybe like religion at least gives people an idea that there is genuine evil out there and there's good out there, and when you take that away from people, they're just confused and they sort of just
Yeah. Well, in a way, even if they're extremely like you have like these super far left people or people that are um modern day Satanists where
mm-hmm,
they don't believe in Satan, but they're like, I'm my own god.
mm-hmm,
They still get outraged and believe, say, like people on the opposite side are evil.
mm-hmm,
It's so people, I don't, unless you're like a child or you've been insanely sheltered your whole life,
mm-hmm.
um, you, almost everyone, I think, believes in evil to some degree, but not everyone believes that the humanity is capable of tons of evil, like deep down.
I
And
guess
that's
I
why people get so offended by at least Christianity because it's like the basic belief is we're born evil, we're all capable of the same evil,
mm-hmm,
and we're all sinners. And people don't like hearing that, oh, you're a bad person,
yeah,
like from like deep down in your heart.
yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm getting at. I think like people just can't accept that evil
No.
is a very real thing that is a human. uh, it is a human.
And so it, and I think people just I think something like child trafficking is so unbelievably evil that people have a
Mm-hmm.
hard time believing it exists. Kind of like uh what happened in the Holocaust, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't believe it's real because it's so unbelievably evil and insane to even think that it actually happened, but it did happen.
Yeah.
Um, and there's so much other evil that's even could even be worse that's being covered up around the world that isn't talked about because it's just so distasteful to it's like you feel icky even
Mm-hmm.
like conceiving of it or thinking even of it.
I think even people are just they're uneasy with what can lead up to evil. Like when I talk to you know like when I tried to talk to the artist that blocked me yesterday, he's like a super Marxist leftist guy, and I've done some research in like how that kind of ideology has led to just some horrific type of shit. But
I mean, if you look into like a lot of those ideas, or at least look into the life of these founders of these ideas,
mm-hmm.
they're like evil, disgusting, messed up people. Not saying like I think everyone's messed up to some degree, but I watched a documentary from a YouTuber on Scientology and
Mm-hmm.
L. Ron Hubbard who founded it. Dude was so messed up.
Mm.
Like he was an evil dude
Yeah.
and like the whole like story behind Scientology would make a great science fiction novel, which all of his other science fiction novels didn't do that good.
You mean like what they actually believe?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I remember. There was a South Park episode that
Yep,
yeah, I remember
I got
that.
shown that at my Christian school in high school when we were learning about different religions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were shown that he's like, listen, my Bible teacher was like, I don't condone this show. It's not very appropriate for your guys' age group, but this is the most accurate depiction of what actually happened in
Mm-hmm.
Scientology or what they believe.
Yeah. I was thinking though, because like with listening to like Jordan Peterson talk about the Bible, as far as like the importance of story, could one make the same argument for like the story of Scientology? Like the story in itself holds like uh some sort of values that are just generally good for people. I don't know as far as like whatever the values are in Scientology, but Uh,
Mm.
could that be a like a defense of Scientology? Like if even
If there are good values, or
if there are
like, what are you asking?
like if uh like let's say who is it, the is it Jonah and the whale, the story of
Yeah,
Jonah and the whale?
or the big fish.
Like I've heard people talk about just the um what the whale in story, because I know like Pinocchio also kind of derives from this similar
Mm.
kind of thing. But do you know who Joseph Campbell is, chance? I mean he's
His
dead,
name his
but
name sounds so familiar.
he's some guy. You can find interviews with him on YouTube, but he's some guy that just specializes in old folk tales and like the kind of symbolic significance of certain themes and stuff like that. And he
Mhm.
brought up the whale and Jonah and the whale and Pinocchio, and he just said that like the whale in itself kind of represents I think like the danger, like the animalistic side of our own self-conscious or something like that. Um, so like could if the tales in Scientology have like deeper meanings like that that are generally good, would that be like, is it fine for someone to follow Scientology if the stories themselves hold kind of deeper themes like that?
I think the story itself is a good and interesting story. Um, but like I said, he's a science fiction writer,
Hmm.
or was, and then he was like, I want to just start my own religion and I want to make my mark on the world. Um, I think there's a lot of value in folk tales.
Hmm.
I have a hard time I was hard time visualizing what you're saying with like Jonah, the story of Jonah, because I was like,
I just
I'm
mean
like,
that.
oh, I couldn't like dissect, like, because
Mhm.
I believe it's a historical event, but I can dissect like what actually was going on in the story, and then,
Oh,
but
so
it's an interesting, it's so fascinating, like to see like, because things that happen can also be symbolic
mhm.
of
So
meaning
so you
something else.
believe that the Jonah story is a real story that happened?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. Like all the anything in the Bible that isn't explicitly parable or poetry
Hmm.
is it's like very historical
Hmm.
to me and to a lot of Christians. Um, but Jonah, like I believe it actually happened.
Hmm.
Uh, but the, like
Uh,
what happened in the story, or we call it a story. Uh, he God told him go and preach to. Great, I'm blanking on the people group name. He was like, "Go to
I
Nineveh," which
yeah.
is like this awful town where they torture people alive, do
Hmm.
awful things to like people,
Hmm.
and say you have to go and tell them that they're bad, like
Yeah.
what they're doing. If they don't repent and if they don't stop doing these horrible things, that I'm going to destroy their town. And
Yeah.
so Jonah, who's a prophet, he's like, "Oh, uh, God, I don't really want to go." So he was like, "I'm gonna run away from God."
Hmm.
And so he hops on a boat to sail in the complete opposite direction. And
Hmm.
then a storm hits and it's awful, and the people on the ship are like praying to all their gods and stuff. They're like, "We don't know why this is happening." And then Jonah, who's like sleeping in the hull of the ship,
Hmm.
they were like, "Did you do something?"
Yeah.
They drew straws, like Jonah had the short straw or something, and like they're like, what did you do? Did you do something bad?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, well, I ran away from what God my God told me." And they're like, "Dude, why? Why did you do that?" And so he's like, "Just throw me off the boat." And so they're like, "Are you sure?" And then they throw him off the boat. The storm stops, and this fish comes up and swallows Jonah.
Hmm.
I don't know how I can't I'm so like I have not read the story in a long time, but I think he was in there for like 3 days or maybe a week, which is kind of insane to be in those gastric juices that long. And
Hmm.
then the fish goes up the store and short and vomits Jonah at the city of Nineveh.
Hmm.
And so people were like, they didn't kill him because they were willing to listen because he looked like a one of their gods who had pale skin and was completely hairless, which
Right.
could have been from the gastric juices.
Hmm.
But that's like that's kind of that's that's the gist of the story, and
Hmm.
Jonah was trying to run away from God.
Yeah. But I mean, even if that was a real story or not, like there is something about just what like a lesson there about like
Hmm.
not what would it be like
Don't run away from your
yeah,
duties
don't run away from your duty, don't turn
for
your
your
back.
own self-protection.
Yeah.
To staying away from certain ideas or certain topics
Hmm.
to preserve yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like been the thing over the last, I don't know, ever since COVID, really. That like, 'cause I've been noticing a lot more people find faith, and me maybe 10 years ago, I might think differently. I might not have thought that would be good for people, but now seeing COVID happen to people and seeing people just find faith again, I think it's just generally good for people to like be reminded of just be reminded of like that there is such a thing of knowing or trying to be curious as to like what good and bad is, and
Hmm.
so because the opposite is you live in LA, so used and just do whatever television box tells them, and that's it.
Or they just live how they want. Like, whatever
Yeah.
feels right to me is the right thing to do.
Hmm.
Anyways, um, I don't know if you wanted to continue down this rabbit hole or where are we
Uh,
gonna go with this.
I mean, do you have anything else about the Sound of Freedom? Anything?
Just back on that, I just think it's insane that that the media is trying to be like, hey, this
Yeah.
doesn't, this is just a theory, it doesn't actually happen. When I was almost trafficked
Really?
myself a few summers ago, yeah.
Do you want
And I,
to talk
yeah,
about that or?
after that happening though, like human trafficking and child trafficking is probably the issue I care about most,
Hmm.
more than anything. There's a good there's a good group to follow on social media. They're called Exodus Cry.
Hmm.
Um, they talk about like they were the main company that started to hold Pornhub accountable for what they were doing.
Hmm.
And they got some major credit card companies to drop them,
Hmm.
which is quite amazing. Anyways, what happened to me was it was the middle of the day, probably around 1 or 2 o'clock, and I was with my one of my friends, and we had gone to Home Depot, where my brother was working at the time, and this was during summer. And we pulled into a handicapped spot because I had a handicapped this card
Placard?
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, placard.
Yeah.
And I put that up in the window and we got out and we walked into the store and saw my brother and we're like, okay, we'll see you later, Ben. And we were walking out back to the car and as we were almost there, this white van whips out of nowhere. Like it starts driving really fast and by the time I closed the door, and I was in
Hmm.
the passenger side, by the time I closed the door, we had both gotten in. They were in the spot next to us, and this guy hops out. And I'll never forget his face. I could draw a picture of his face from memory. He was like, hey, hey, like looking in at you in the window, or me in the window on my side. He's like, your tire's flat. and he was pointing and trying to like signal to like open up the window or open up the door. And I was actually about to because I wasn't thinking at the moment.
Hmm.
And my friend was like, "Wait, don't open it." I saw something about this on TikTok, and
Hmm.
I always like it was like, "What? What a ridiculous sentence." But anyways,
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay." So I didn't open the door, and he just like had this crazed look in his eyes,
Wait, he
like
was he was trying to get you to open his door?
no, my door, my
Okay.
passenger door, so I can look out to like see like
Hmm.
if the tire really was flat.
Yeah.
But it was so insane when the way he drove in so fast to the parking spot that right next to us, like it was so fast. And there was like a giant, like a really heavy set woman in the
Hmm.
passenger seat, but he once we didn't respond, we just kind of stared at him. He like walked around our car and then went into Home Depot. And so we had caught all this on we had a dash cam
Hmm.
and stuff, so we have the audio of what happened. And I was like, I wasn't really thinking much about it. I was like, that was really weird. And the more I look back on it, I was like, oh man. So we had to report it to the police, and the police were like, yeah, that was definitely a human trafficker.
So, your friend said, or was it your friend or your brother? Said that they saw that in TikTok.
Oh, it was my friend.
And
She was like,
what exactly did she see on the TikTok that like?
that this is just a tactic that people do to kidnap people.
So they kind of like drive up, tell you to look at something. They grab you and then they take you, or.
Yes, as soon as you open it up, and like it was like this man and then the large woman in
Hmm.
the passenger seat, and I know that some like a large person is great for wrestling a person down with their body
Hmm.
weight.
Yeah.
Like, I know it sounds like I'm theorizing at this point, but um,
I got you.
so the police like confirmed, like, yeah, I live. Ohio's really bad with human trafficking.
Really?
It's super dangerous because we have so many interstates,
Uh huh.
like we have to a bunch of airports, to main cities. You can easily access Pennsylvania, Indiana, um, Kentucky. Like we so many little states
Yeah.
like border us. West Virginia too. And it's easy to just like go cross state lines. Um, and my county that I live in is really bad with trafficking, and I felt like really irritated because the police didn't really
You
get back to
know,
us much. I was like, listen, you could probably find like security footage of this guy walking in. And I offered to draw a picture, but
hmm,
it's
do you know anybody that or connected to anybody that was trafficked or was taken or anything like that, or in your
no, but I
neck of the
have
woods?
lots of stories from Ohio in the general northeast section that I live in.
Yeah.
Different tactics people put, and sometimes this tactic is used with um, to just rob people, but they'll put an empty plastic water bottle and like full with air and have like the cap twisted on real tight, and they'll jam it into where the so that like when the tire backs up, it'll pop
Yeah. Okay.
and it'll get someone to get out and look. Um, and then that's where they get kidnapped or robbed.
Yeah.
Uh, we have there's a story of a girl at the mall. Malls are huge, like
Yeah.
spots that
Definitely.
you should not go to by yourself. Um, she was at the mall with her mom and she had to go to the bathroom, so her mom waited outside the bathroom and she went in and her mom was like wondering why she was taking so long, so she walked in to check her and she sees her daughter slumped up against the wall, unconscious, and two or three girls like around her. And they're like, "Oh, our friend had too much to drink." Like like she's okay. And she's like, "That's my daughter." And they immediately drop her and run out. And these girls were young. They were like young adults, teenagers,
This
around the
happened.
same.
This happened in your hood, or
My hood, no. This happened at in a town called Mentor in Ohio at the mall. So what happened was like they had injected the daughter with a syringe. They used a syringe, they injected something in her that kind of drugged her up and made her unresponsive almost. So the girl had said what had happened was when she walked in, like before she could get into a stall, the girl's like, or maybe it was after she had used the bathroom, but they had jumped out and injected her with something and moved her over to the wall. And this is like apparently something that happens. And it's like it's really not safe anywhere anymore. And I can get more into like all sorts of stuff to look out for, but
I never thought about that. The interstate aspect that you brought up. That is an interesting thing
my
there.
county has like a turnpike and it's hard for police to chase
Yeah,
someone who goes onto the turnpike because you can go far.
yeah. All right. I guess you mentioned TikTok, so let's get into our next
I
thing.
hate this. I hate this so much.
I think you can close the thing you shared, or can
Okay.
I do it? Oh yeah, okay.
Oh,
Go.
I got it.
All right. Yeah. Just so there's this thing called is it NPC streaming on TikTok, and I guess you want to find a clip to play it for, I guess, a good 20 seconds, just so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
'Cause
give me a
describing it
second.
is just, it's hard to describe without sounding like a.
This is like something that you would see. The way this girl ends up talking, um it's like a kid's game. Like
Yeah, there is
just straight up a
definitely.
kid's game like I remember playing on like maybe nickjr.com or something where you're like feeding like a character
Yeah,
or like putting it in order and the character's like responding, you
yeah,
know?
it feels like I mean, I'm older than you, obviously, but do you know what Tamagotchis are?
Mhm.
Like those old pet monster keychain things. It feels like that, I guess, to get people. I guess
Yeah.
find the video.
Okay.
I guess that one, the one in the middle, or I guess is that one?
I
Yeah.
don't really want to do that one. I looked at these. I think maybe this one.
All right, so let's just.
Oh no, it wants me to log in to Instagram. Okay. Um,
I guess let me unshare it if you want to sign in. Yeah, second to sign
okay,
in.
let me give me a second.
uh, yeah,
Gotta
this
reopen this.
yeah this whole NPC TikTok thing is very worrying for me as far as like the state of people's psychology right now. Uh, so much weird.
Man, I hope I can remember my password.
Or I mean, I think I can. I'm
Oh,
probably
hold
logged
on.
in. Uh, Look,
Oh, yep,
got it. Okay.
yep. Okay, let me reopen this now.
Yeah. So how much like research on this have you? I've only seen like maybe a video or two explaining this.
None. Well, okay, so one of the communities I'm heavily involved with
Hmm.
um, is the cringe community.
Uh-huh.
So there's these compilations or like people repost these really cringe videos on TikTok, and it's just like it's so fascinating to watch. It also makes you feel better about yourself for not being
Like that.
absolutely starved for attention or so many people are just horny. It's or people are completely lost their minds. Um,
Yeah,
so
the attention seeking part is a big aspect of this, and
yes, this but she's getting paid.
hmm
She's getting paid for doing this. This takes a lot of energy. So let me and there isn't anything sexually explicit or even implied. It's like it's almost like you watch it and you're like, what am I looking at? So I can pull it up
yeah.
and play one.
I guess play whichever. Damn, six
Eh,
thousand.
the one with 6,000 likes, maybe?
They're all gonna be awful, so it doesn't matter. Guys, put the sound on.
The more I know you want me to leave. Oh, I love you. Mwah. Now spicy.
Let me pick, let me
Oh
do
yeah,
this
there's
one. This
someone
might
here.
be a better example.
Yeah,
Roses, yum. Yeah.
that's a quick one.
Roses,
Is there
yum.
is there a longer one? Get the one in the
This
middle.
one's longer.
Let's do a couple second one.
Roses, yum. Taco crunch. Now spicy. Sushi. Cute. Oh. Now spicy. Lollipop, yum.
Okay, I
Okay, I
think
can't
we
handle anymore.
yeah, I think we kind of did that pretty well. But I guess first thoughts that come to mind with this kind of shit.
Do you want me to go, like, how deep do you want me to dive
You
into
can go
this?
as far as you want. I mean, I'm so
Okay, this is
curious.
all based on, like, e-girl and e-girl culture and OnlyFans culture. So, like,
Hmm.
her even down to her makeup style, her mannerisms.
Hmm.
This is common on TikTok. It started probably back in 2020.
Hmm.
Maybe it's even 2019. Um,
This is weird
so
because like I follow a couple of like models that also do cosplay modeling, and there's even some type of cosplay that's a lot more graphic, I would say, and it feels like it's not as graphic, but there is
n-
a an
no.
alley of weirdness that is shares with that.
So the culture title of this is e-girls
Hmm.
and OnlyFans or Twitch streamers, like Twitch streamers like this. So they're acting like anime girls. If you've ever watched, I can't say all anime. There's like I watch a lot of good stuff, a lot of the
Yeah.
manly stuff, the grounded in reality stuff. That isn't like all fan servicey, like
Hmm.
to attract people.
Right.
But this is like based in like borderline pornographic stuff and act like an anime girl, which it's also creepy because they act really childish.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the creepier part of it. It's weird
in
blending of
Japan's
sexual.
culture, I'm not gonna excuse it. They act
Yeah, there's some
weird. They
weird
love
Japanese
cuteness.
stuff. Have you ever seen like, oh god, it's so creepy. Like little Japanese like fuck dolls. Have you seen that shit? It's like,
Yes.
have you seen that stuff?
Yeah, and
Oh,
like there's this whole subcategory called lolicon.
uh-huh.
Loli, like Lolita.
Oh, yeah, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like oh, she's actually a 1,000-year-old dragon but she's in the body of a 10-year-old, so it's okay though, because she's 1,000 years old. That's kind. No,
Yeah.
no, I won't excuse anyone. Anyways, so that's kind of all of that. So back to this TikTok. She's acting like a non-playable character from a video game,
Hmm.
and they're paying to send her these little stickers of these little emojis of like food or cowboy hat
Hmm.
or like I've seen girls that like have this emoji which is like the heart for
Uh,
Korea and they'll just do it a bunch of time or they'll say gang gang gang
oh, that's what
gang.
that is. Oh, okay. Because I've seen there's another chick.
Yeah, there's like a black girl that does
Yeah,
like
yeah.
gang gang. I'm not gonna do that
Did you
anymore.
see that? Like, she has this thing that I think her name is like Pink something. But anyways, she does this. I think in all her videos, she has a hair curler or something like that. And in the hair curler, there's a kernel of popcorn, and once the kernel of popcorn pops, she just gets a nut. She puts it down and puts another kernel. Throughout her stream, she does that.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and like, see,
I don't understand.
I I don't know. This is so.
So it's all like
It's like I'm older than you, so I've like the early days of internet was like find whatever weird shit you can find. But this is like that was like much more underground weird shit. This is like
well, the
attention.
camera quality wasn't good,
Yeah.
and this is just like devolved. Like
Hmm.
I hate our culture. I hate TikTok. It is rotted people's brains, and they're all like to see the evolution go from like a whole makeup style and a way of dressing and acting come
Hmm.
down to like people pay to get her to do these things because it's like quote unquote
Hmm.
an NPC fetish for the viewers, but she's getting money like every single time one of those little emojis comes on screen.
Yeah, this is like
But
a
it's
weird evolution of this kind of shit. Because I remember hearing about like the original Lara Croft games. There was a code to play as Lara Croft, but you can have her play nude. And even then, I thought that was just like weird as hell. And
isn't that
like,
like more like a mod rather than
it might have been
an
a
in-game
mod, but
thing? I don't know.
but yeah, it's just like this weird. It's like this weird evolution of like sex and technology and attention seeking
It's
all.
it's become so saturated
Uh
in our
huh.
culture and it's easier to find now. And I have a problem with this being on TikTok,
Yeah.
because TikTok is it started out being geared towards kids.
Hmm.
I've seen it's like the main social media platform that kids are on.
Hmm.
Like I have a young cousin and for years she's been on this and I'm like
Yeah.
there's there's some bad stuff. There's like it's like any trend a kid will copy. A kid will start
Oh,
doing it
definitely.
and it attracts some bad people. And then it's just like this weird it's just I don't I it's
It's
almost unfathomable for to me.
what's really kind of odd is like TikTok is really like short attention span kind of shit. It's quick
Mhm.
little things. And when I was a kid, like I still love classic Simpsons episodes, and me and my friends, as late elementary, middle school, like we would quote Simpsons to each other, and it was just like this fun thing. And like I'm seeing like the effect of TikTok that's having on kids is odd because like my friends, their kids are like around 10 years old, and they tell me like, yeah, my kids, it's weird. They talk like internety sometimes. Like they talk like in weird bursts like that, and I mean, like I see this NPC TikTok thing, and like how like how bored does like the culture have to be for this to become something that becomes a thing? It's so odd. Instead of
Uh,
us talking about like the best movie or something like that, we're talking about fucking weird TikTok videos. It's, it says a lot about like.
because culture has devolved since COVID and since wokeness has happened.
Hmm.
And people, I mean, ah, there's just, it's like this entire like
Hmm.
universe of stuff in the internet, and it's hard to even put into words all these little connections that have led to this point.
Yeah.
And at least I can brag that Gen Z, my generation, has the older parts of it. We've embraced cringe and
Uh-huh.
putting all of these things into things and being like, look at this person. We should bring back bullying as a joke. But this is like, well, this is what happens when you're chronically online and people come up with the phrase, you should go out and touch some grass.
Yeah, yeah,
Get back in reality, get off the internet.
yeah.
Um, being involved in like a cosplay community, I've seen like everyone just start making these weird expressions and it's so irritating to watch it.
What do you mean weird expressions? Like as they pose for
Like
pictures
an
or
anime or talk. Oh, I hate I have to do this, but people talking out the side of their mouth like this,
oh, like all Asian-y kind of thing?
like anime, like me, like
Uh,
wow,
right,
I
right,
can't
right.
even do it. It's so stupid. Um, and it's for attention, and people are like, "That's trendy. I want to do that," or
Hmm.
"I want to like acting like a character."
Hmm.
And that's okay, I guess. It's cringe though. It's like ew. What? Just act normal. Just show off your cosplay. Be like, look. Or you can act like a character.
Yeah.
But doing those cringe like facial expressions or being like I've seen people do thirst traps of characters
Hmm.
and they're like looking at the camera and they're like definitely like, yeah, I'm so cool or appealing and it's like kind of creepy and gross.
Uh-huh.
Um there's so much. I hate how digitalized our culture's become.
Yeah.
It's like only a few years ago I was like, wow, Instagram, we can all post our paintings and
Mm.
I get to go to college and I get to see people's artwork that they worked hard on. And now like the main output of content and culture is on the internet
Hmm.
and it's doing these mindless things for attention or validation. Like there's a whole other like category of like things the internet has done. Like Tim Pool has said like Dylan Mulvaney was like
Oh,
became
he's
trans because of an algorithm
yeah. I
of
see his
trying to get
point. Yeah,
popular.
yeah. I see that. Yeah. Like I worry so much for like just how dating is for like the average 18 to 22-year old person like that. That like it's hard to like not be affected by the algorithms. 'Cause, like even if you're someone who's off social media completely, the odds are that the people around you are somehow linked into the social media kind of nightmare. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So like I've mentioned this before, but it's like affecting the way people like the way people communicate with each other. Like if I go to if I go to a party or bar or something like that, and I just overhear other people's conversations, like they're sort of having like the same kind of conversation, like it's very like, hey, that Marvel movie, huh? Yeah, that was good, kind of shit, and it's so it's not like I'm not complaining about the subject matter of Marvel. I'm not shitting on Marvel. I mean like,
They're kind of crap now
oh
anyways.
yeah, yeah, but I mean like, it's like the level of depth of the conversations that people are having nowadays is almost it's kind of dying. Like there was a few years ago, I went to me and my girl, we were like in a kind of we were into playing pool at the time. We just like playing
Hmm.
pool, and we found some random billiards place around her mom woods, and I was setting up the table, and my girl, I think she was buying drinks or something like that, but I was sitting at the table, and there was like a table next to us. I think it was like two or three guys and two or three girls. I think it was like a double, triple date sort of thing. And I was just overhearing like one guy try to talk to the girl, and it was something like, "Have you seen Rick and Morty? Oh, you should check it out. Rick, the uncle, he like drinks beer and burps. It's hilarious." Like
Was he
that
kind of
was
hit on her?
he was, but like that's like the level of depth in that conversation was so like sad and like oh my god, like that's how he was trying to connect. And poor. I mean, the girl herself was like on her phone, like taking selfies the whole time. So yeah, it's
This
like,
is
and when I see this, it's like guys paying a chick to just react like a NPC. I like being attracted to that instead of being attracted to like a conversation with. It's like
those conversations.
it's really
I
sad.
can't. I can't even. I can't. There's so much
Uh huh.
that goes into this because it's like, oh, you don't like. It's harder to talk to women nowadays because women are. We've
Fem.
always been slightly crazy. Um,
You can say it's feminism that.
Feminism, yeah, feminism's a huge one. The Me Too movement, and then there's like guys that are like pretty normal,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're into nerdy stuff. It's intimidating and it's hard to get out there, like, and you're afraid you're gonna look creepy. Um, and now all of people's social skills, like, they've learned through the internet
Yeah.
instead of shooting your shot or even like school, like schools nowadays, like people are like, oh, participation trophies, and I don't want to sound like a boomer, but that kind
Yeah.
of like that whole like just that's an example of just things developing socially.
Mm-hmm.
And what people see, like everything's just so saturated with
Mm-hmm.
every little thing on the internet has it way we've developed as a culture
Yeah.
has become like that. So the way Gen Z deals with this at least is humor and pointing out like that is cringe. You need to get a life, or this person is weird. Like, so that's how everyone copes by making jokes.
I mean, I do think like humor should make a comeback, which I think a lot of this is like I do think there's a weird war on humor. I think there's been a war on humor for a while now.
Ever since Lenny Bruce was arrested for
Yeah,
making a joke.
I'm even talking about like even much more recently, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
you remember what happened to Daniel Tosh? Like
I don't know who that is, unfortunately.
he's some comedian guy, but he was just riffing on stage, and he's asked the audience like, "Oh, guys, what do you guys want to talk about now?" And someone said, I think someone said, "Oh, rape." He's like, "Oh, you think rape is funny?" And then some chick just some some broad was like, "Oh, actually, nothing's funny about rape." And then Daniel Tosh, he's a comedian, so he's just like, "Well, wouldn't it be funny if everyone just raped her right now?" And everyone laughed and stuff like that, and it became like this weird
It's like in
like
bad taste, but
but yeah, it's a joke, and
it's a joke.
you're on your feet. And I remember seeing like so many people, like even on the in the comedy side, like attack him, and just like you're like it's humor, like there shouldn't be this like humor shouldn't be safe. It has to even if it does like hurt sometimes. Like it's humor. It's open dialogue. I,
Sometimes it's the only way people can connect, and people laugh because sometimes things have a little bit of truth to them.
mhm. Yeah, like some of the best jokes are offensive, and just they kind of they get you from like a left field kind of thing, but you laugh and then you move on. And
Have you ever watched Mike Tyson Mysteries?
I used to watch this show. Yeah, it was a good show. Uh,
I liked the first season. It was so offensive, but it was so funny.
yeah,
Um,
it was just I don't know. There's like I noticed like kind of the policing of comedy maybe like in '08, and that's when it was starting to worry me because back in like the early '90s, if there was like a joke police kind of thing, it was always like mocked because it was like the right that was trying to police jokes. And then when it became like the left trying to do it, that's when it became like, oh, but it's now they have a point. Shouldn't joke this thing. Like the argument's the same. It's like, why are you guys picking a side now?
it's flipped. It's flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Any sort of like anti-establishment,
Mm-hmm.
it's now right or center, but
Yeah.
compared to the left, everything's right. Um,
Yeah. Uh, did you see that video? Kind of went viral like maybe a month ago of some chick in a car, and she's talking about like that the only guys that she's that fit her kind of thing that she like are conservative. Did you see that one? And she hated that. And
yes, everyone roasted her.
like shit like that just worries me for like how dating is gonna. How old are you?
I am 22.
Okay,
I'm almost 23, but I met
like
my boyfriend online.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean that's fine.
on
I don't hate on that.
It's sad that it's hard to find people
Uh huh.
without going online because a lot of people are confined to their houses or you don't want to come off as weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or if you're like have a different viewpoint and
Mm-hmm.
you're in college.
Yeah, I can't
But
imagine.
everyone's insane. Like everyone's like immature and but yeah, masculine guys, they're hard to come by, but I'm lucky I have my boyfriend who's probably gonna watch this, so I'll get it. Yeah, but
He's
he's
like
he's
he's a
he's
bro.
masculine.
He's a
He's a
bro.
bro. And
Uh
there's a bunch of like he has a whole group of friends that are awesome and they're all bros and they're all finding their way. Um and it like a lot of guys that are like, center to right on that spectrum, they don't
mm-hmm.
have girlfriends
Mm-hmm.
because they don't know where to find
Yeah,
conservative or moderate or just normal
yeah, I don't even think it's about finding
girls.
conservative girl. It's like finding a girl that isn't so heavily influenced by not just social media, just
Motion.
by just media and people. Like it's
It's ever
hard
since
nowadays.
COVID, it's escalated. It's like pushed our culture ahead like 20 years. Like we've devolved
Mm-hmm.
or evolved into something so superficial, so
Materialistic also.
materialistic, sexual, debaucherous, self-centered,
But
evil
yet
culture.
but yet also immature in a way. It's odd. It's like when you I might have mentioned this before in another episode, but like it's weird that the culture they've grown immature in some facets, but like they've replaced that immaturity with like vulgarity and sexuality. It's like it, it's so it's
It's
so bizarre.
because there's a push to turn, and it has turned. I can't say it's a push anymore because it's a thing now.
Mm-hmm.
People's sexual identity, they're basing their whole identity about around their gender or who they like to sleep with, which none
Yeah,
of my business. I don't want to know. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're straight or how well I know you. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Yeah,
And it's
that
not privatized, it's now celebrated.
yeah, it's
And
something that people need to know about you. It's like if I only like if I only dated a hot blondes or something like I would push it on people like you need to know that I only bang hot blondes. I don't know, I
yeah, it's like I when did this become I th- I think maybe the core issue is the culture has become all about me.
mhm,
All about the world revolves around me and everyone I need validation to be who I am. I
yeah,
need everyone to affirm every single thing that I do, that I say, what my pronouns are. Oh wow, I get to like I can choose my own language and control the language of people around me to make me feel seen.
yeah.
Uh, y- I it, it's
Eh,
insane,
what
dude.
what what's
I can't
what's
do it.
what's really weird too is like the concept of like individuality has been kind of flipped. Like the SJW person, like I think like they get the blue hair, or they wear the pins with all the political beliefs, all this shit.
Tons of
It's like this
pins.
weird sense that they're being so individual, but yet,
They're like, I'm counterculture.
but yet,
And
yeah, but yet like you're dressed,
you're like in the main part of
yeah,
like internet culture at least.
yeah,
You're not original. I mean, like having like I have to show all my pins. I have to have all my flags. Oh, and all these different genders that I identify as because there's some weird genders out there.
mm,
That's not something I want to get into. Um, my favorite characters, my disorders. Like I have to show that I'm autistic or
yeah,
which people are self-diagnosing themselves now and they're not.
yeah,
And it hurts people that actually have whatever disabilities they have. Um, and it's like self-expression, and I'm all for self-expression. Um,
mm-hmm,
but it's so weird that these people are like so focused on themselves and how they feel and how people make them feel and they need to be seen. But they also have this like they're very collectivist. They're like, we have to support this community. We have to support, say, like black people, every single black person. Unless they disagree with us, then we don't
yeah,
like they don't see people as individuals, even though because they don't see people as individuals because they only focus on themselves.
mm,
They're like, I'm the main character, and then there's these groups.
yeah,
Like, and then there's their friends, and I'm sure they see them as individuals because no one's that. I mean, I'm sure there's some psychopaths that
yeah,
think that way, but most people, they just, I feel like, and that, why are
yeah.
we so generalized, but also hyper fixated on making sure the world sees our individuality?
What's really weird too? It's like you mentioned like the SJW with all the pins. It's like part of like conversation. The fun part of conversation is finding things out about people, and
Hmm.
it's like if I don't need to find out anything about you through your clothes or your outfit, you're probably not that interesting to begin with. Because like the most SJW people I know, like in my family and stuff like that, like they're not really that they don't like trying to talk to them about like I don't know movies or something like that. Like they don't really have anything to bring to the table. Very oh yeah, that movie's good. I it's like but beyond that, like they it's all
I mean, people
superficial.
like, they have fandoms,
Hmm.
like a concept of like, I'm a fan of this show.
Hmm.
Like, say, I'm in the Batman fandom.
Hmm.
Like, I actually love Batman, but like people can connect. They can generally connect over that, but
Hmm.
at some point I hate it, but people make things about character sexualities and putting them together as couples and they're obsessed with that. But
Yeah.
it's really like you can maybe ask about hobbies and stuff,
Uh-huh.
um, rather than cultural things to connect over because maybe there's a generational thing or
But a lot of them,
I
like
don't
their
know.
hobbies are activism related. So it's like,
Oh, being online and
and I went to this
yeah.
protest and to this,
Oh wow, aren't you so different?
it's
You went
like
to a
I could,
protest.
it's like
Did
I
you
could,
change anything?
yeah.
No,
Uh,
I'm.
I guess we could start winding it down.
Yep.
I think we've said what we need to say about this NPC stuff. Um, I mean, there was the Jack White thing, but I guess we can hold off on that one.
Eh, it's
Just another celebrity being a
just
douche.
another celebrity being like, I hate all you people. Isn't it wonderful? I love pop punk and punk music.
Mhm. As like the
And
celeb, like, cause
they
I'm a hip hop guy, and like so many people that like they're like super BLM assholes. You know what I mean? Is it the same for pop punk? Like, are they all
pop punks are
bad?
like connected to either anarchy
Mm-hmm.
or rebellion in the early 2000s. Like Green Day. Um,
Yeah.
I like My Chemical Romance, which they've been strangely not political. They've
Mm-hmm.
just been more like anti-suicide, anti-drugs, anti-Hollywood culture
Mm-hmm.
in their music. But
Yeah.
like rebelling, like, ooh, people are spooked by teenagers, so wear some act all emo or something. It, it's much deeper than that, but
Yeah.
a lot of it was always like anti-government and like
Are they have they been consistent or are they kind of flipped?
no, they've been consistent.
Oh, okay,
Or
that's good.
MCR is like not necessarily anti-government. Well, I mean, yes, they are, but
Yeah.
it's more. It's not like we hardcore support this or are against that. Now,
Yeah.
Green Day, Armstrong, Billy Joe Armstrong, he he's like always been like his big albums, American Idiot, um, anti-Bush, anti like, ooh, I support America and stuff. But now he's like really hard for the establishment, and that's kind of how. So anyone that's pop punk fans nowadays, they're like, this applies to us now,
Yeah.
even though we're like on the right, or
Yeah.
it's like no one really cares because it's not new. But it is kind of insane that these anti-establishment people are being like, Trump is the most evil man.
Yeah.
We need to vote Democrat and be involved in these wars overseas. And it's like, I guess things have flipped.
Yeah. I mean, the best example, of course, is the Rage Against the Machine.
Mm-hmm.
How far they've just douched up. It's really annoying. Anyways, I guess we should kind of start to call it. I guess if you want to plug anything before we go.
You can find me on Instagram at intuitive_inks. Um, that's pretty much the only place I am at the moment, but I make art and do cosplay.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm gonna be vending on the 30th at a car
Ooh,
show in Commerce. So I'm gonna have some new merch for that. So
that's
be on the
awesome.
lookout for that. And I'm looking to pick up my movie review show soon. So I think maybe in by the next month I'm gonna start start that again. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week maybe. Thank you. Bye. Peace.